Night. Darkness wraps everything like a deep breath being held. High above, a massive metal bird drifts through the sky. Its lights flicker, barely there. Inside, hundreds of lives hover between sleep and wakefulness, waiting to arrive somewhere. Anywhere. But there is something they don't know. Tonight, there is no destination. Tonight, even the stars seem unwilling to watch. Because in a moment, everything is about to change. Let's go back a few hours. Under the airport lights, a massive passenger jet rumbles onto the runway. Its metal body feels reassuring. The engines spin with a steady, confident roar. In the cockpit, the captain, more than 30 years of experience, checks the instruments. Beside him, the young first officer looks out at the star-filled sky, alert, excited. In the cabin, mothers try to lull their children to sleep. Business travelers scroll through laptops. A newly married couple holds hands, quietly imagining the future. Everything is exactly as it should be. At 0041, the wheels leave the ground. The aircraft climbs into the night. Every night, hundreds of thousands of flights take off around the world. This is just one of them. For now. The aircraft settles into its route. The pilots trust the autopilot, their conversation fading into silence. Aside from light turbulence, the air is calm. Kuala Lumpur falls behind as the plane begins its overnight journey. Inside the cabin, the crew quietly prepares meal service. Most passengers have unfastened their seatbelts, seats slightly reclined. Some watch movies, others have already closed their eyes. In total darkness, 10 kilometers above the earth, life inside the massive bird feels normal. Until the first strange moment arrives. 0119, 40 minutes into the flight. As the aircraft approaches Vietnamese airspace, the Malaysian air traffic controller makes one final call. Malaysia 370, good night. The reply from the cockpit is calm and clear. Good night, Malaysia 370. It will be the last human voice ever heard from that aircraft. Just 2 minutes later, the plane vanishes from civilian radar screens. 1 second, the flight code is there. The next sweep, nothing. Inside the control room, an officer stares at the screen. Gone. The aircraft is gone, he mutters to himself. At first, he assumes a technical glitch. He taps the display, checks the other radars. But no. MH370 is no longer visible. As if, on a starless night, it slipped into a vast, empty space and disappeared. The controller immediately calls his colleague in Vietnam. Has the aircraft entered your airspace? The reply is confused. No, we haven't seen it yet. Minutes pass. They hope it's just a radio failure. They call the plane. MH370, do you read? No response. They try again. MH370, if you're on frequency, respond. Silence. At 1:38, the Vietnamese controller urgently reports back to Malaysia. The aircraft is not with us. It appears to be missing. Until that moment, no one had fully grasped the seriousness. Now, a cold reality sets in. Malaysia's air traffic control goes on alert. On one side, messages back and forth with Vietnam. On the other, emergency procedures are set in motion. But something feels wrong. The aircraft vanished at the exact moment control was being handed over from Malaysia to Vietnam. Right on the boundary between two countries, a grey zone where no one is watching closely. The strangeness of that timing will be discussed for years to come. At first, no one says it out loud, but the question forms in their minds. Does an aircraft simply disappear on its own, at the single blind spot in the system? Or did someone choose that moment, on purpose? Minutes pass. Malaysian civil aviation authorities, still unaware of any military radar data, begin to assume the aircraft has crashed. Preparations start immediately to launch a search over the South China Sea. But at the very same time, a different picture is unfolding inside the Malaysian Air Force Command Centre. Military radar operators detect an unidentified aircraft turning west inside Malaysian airspace. After 1:30, a ghost appears on their screens. It is the size of a commercial jet. It transmits no civilian transponder signal. Its speed and altitude match those of a Boeing 777. They track it for a while. The aircraft crosses the Malay Peninsula, turns north near Penang Island, then disappears towards the Andaman Sea, beyond radar range. One of the officers suspects it could be MH370, but there are no signs of hostility. The plane seems to be heading back toward its own country. Probably a friendly aircraft, they decide, maybe just correcting its route. They do not file a report. Only later will we understand how costly that decision was, how much it let slip through their hands. MH370 is lost to the civilian world. Yet in the military world, it continues on its way, unnoticed. No one knows where the captain is going or why. Maybe there was a struggle in the cockpit. Maybe everyone on board is unconscious. From the outside, it's impossible to know. But the aircraft is alive. It is still flying. And we know this because of a satellite in space. A British telecommunications satellite, operated by a company called Inmarsat, records extremely faint signals coming from the aircraft that night. These signals aren't distress calls or messages. They are simple, automatic pings. The aircraft's maintenance system quietly asking the satellite, "Am I still there?" Under normal circumstances, no one would ever look at this data. But now, it is the only clue left. The first ping arrives at 2:25. Roughly 1 hour after the aircraft disappeared, the satellite data unit logs back on. Investigators interpret this as a likely restart after a power interruption, meaning the aircraft probably lost electrical power for a moment, then reconnected when backup systems came online and said, "Hello," again to the satellite. And that is unsettling. What happened that caused the power to fail and return? A fire? Or something deliberate? For the next 6 hours, the satellite receives an automatic response to its pings roughly once every hour. And then, the most unsettling truth emerges. the aircraft did not crash. Even without control, it kept flying for hours. Inmarsat engineers analyze the data and begin reconstructing the plane's likely path. Early calculations suggest two possibilities. Either the aircraft turned north towards Central Asia, or it diverted south into the Indian Ocean. Doppler shift analysis delivers the decisive answer. The route was almost certainly south, toward the emptiness of the open ocean. The aircraft continued on a straight southwest heading until its fuel was exhausted. As the sun rose over Malaysia, the plane was sinking into night over the Indian Ocean. Fuel is estimated to have run out around 7:38. At approximately 8:19, the aircraft sent its final signal to the satellite, then began to lose altitude. Although these findings were shared with the public days later, they became the only real light illuminating the fate of the missing flight. By the 11th day, March 18th, the search was no longer focused on the South China Sea. It had shifted west of Australia, into the cold waters of the Indian Ocean. The world was stunned. For reasons still unknown, MH370 had managed to fly for at least 6 hours without being seen by anyone. In an age of modern technology, surrounded by radar systems and satellites, a Boeing 777 had effectively vanished into thin air. The search and rescue operation became the largest in aviation history. Ships and aircraft from 26 countries were deployed. The first week had been wasted in the wrong place, the South China Sea. Now, international teams focused on the Southern Ocean corridor known as the Seventh Arc, where the aircraft was believed to have gone down. Satellites constantly scanned the ocean, hoping to catch a glimpse of floating wreckage. At one point, a Chinese satellite detected what appeared to be large objects on the surface. Ships were redirected to the area, but it led to nothing. Every floating object turned out to be a shipping container, a tree trunk, or ordinary marine debris. Still, hope had not completely faded. In early April 2014, acoustic signals believed to be from the aircraft's black box were detected. Sounds like tick, tick, tick rose from the depths of the ocean. Aboard the search vessels, everyone held their breath. The signals were tracked for days. The area was thoroughly scanned, but once again, it was a false lead. Likely noise from the search equipment itself or another unrelated source. The mystery of MH370 played one last trick and slipped through our fingers. In May 2014, with nothing found on the surface, the search moved to the deep sea. Even the ocean floor had no proper map. It felt like searching for a needle on the surface of the moon. Australian teams used sonar to scan bottomless trenches kilometres below the surface. The effort continued intermittently until 2017. An area of 120,000 square kilometres, the size of an entire country, was searched inch by inch. The only discoveries were 2 shipwrecks from the 1800s. There was no trace of the aircraft. After years of work and more than $160 million spent, the official search was called off. an American marine technology company, Ocean Infinity, launched its own search in early 2018 under a simple agreement: no find, no fee. High-tech autonomous underwater vehicles scanned the ocean floor, re-examining new possibilities. Once again, nothing was found. As the years passed, MH370 began to feel like a ghost, a plane swallowed by the unknown. Some sailors suggested ocean currents may have carried the wreckage far from the search zones. Some scientists predicted that, given enough time, pieces of the aircraft would eventually wash ashore somewhere. And then, in July 2015, it finally happened. On a beach on Réunion Island, a French territory, a piece of wing, a flaperon, was found. The serial number confirmed it belonged to MH370. For the families, it was a bitter moment. The crash into the ocean was now certain, but with that certainty, hope was gone. In the years that followed, a few more fragments were discovered along the coasts of Mozambique, Tanzania, and Madagascar. Most were found not by governments, but by volunteers, aviation enthusiasts searching on their own. Each piece felt like a faint whisper from the aircraft lost at sea. But the main wreckage and the black boxes remain silent, resting somewhere in the deep. With so much uncertainty and so many unanswered questions, theories began to multiply. Some claimed the pilot committed suicide, deliberately flying the aircraft into the ocean. Flight simulator data found at Captain Zahari's home revealed a practice route similar to the plane's final path. For many, this raised the possibility of a dark, deliberate plan. But the captain's family and friends strongly reject that idea. They insist he would never do such a thing. The official investigation found no evidence proving deliberate intent by the pilots. Another theory suggests there may have been a fire on board. Some speculated that lithium-ion batteries in the cargo hold could have ignited shortly after takeoff. Could smoke have forced the pilots to turn back toward Malaysia? But that explanation weakens when you consider one fact. The aircraft continued flying for hours. Others pointed to terrorism. 2 Iranian passengers had boarded the flight using stolen passports, raising early suspicion. But investigations later showed they were young men trying to reach Europe. No links to terrorism were found. And if this had been a hijacking, why did no one ever claim responsibility? Why would the aircraft fly aimlessly into the open ocean? The wildest theories defied reason. UFOs abducted it. It slipped into a space-time rift. The US mistook it for a hostile aircraft, shot it down, and covered it up. There is, of course, no evidence for any of this. One well-known television anchor even went so far as to ask, could it have fallen into a black hole? Among the conspiracy theories, the most moderate suggested the plane had somehow landed and that the passengers might still be alive. Some claimed it was taken to a remote island. Others pointed to Kazakhstan. For years, some desperate families clung to these ideas. As long as their loved ones were alive, even as hostages, that was enough. But the wreckage that was eventually found proved otherwise. The aircraft had crashed into the ocean. And yet, all these theories share one thing in common. People struggle to accept uncertainty. The unknown is the hardest pain to endure. MH370 is not just a technical mystery. For 239 families, it is an endless state of mourning. A father waited at the airport, holding flowers, at the hour his son was supposed to land in Beijing. He went home alone. A young woman lost her husband on their return from their honeymoon. She spent hours staring at their wedding photos, crying. A Chinese mother lost her only child on that flight. Every birthday, she lights a single candle on a cake and releases it into the sky. The wife of Malaysian passenger Patrick Gomez, married for 30 years, still keeps her husband's uniform. When the doorbell rings, she still thinks, maybe. For years, families demanded answers from the airline and the government. When none came, anger followed. In meeting halls in Beijing, protests erupted. "Tell us the truth!" people shouted. Tragically, no one knew the truth. There was only a secret, waiting to rise to the surface. After the aircraft vanished, changes began to ripple through global aviation. New measures were discussed to prevent pilots from disabling systems like the transponder and ACARS. Real-time tracking was proposed for flights over open oceans. All of these efforts became part of MH370's painful legacy. The promise was clear. This will never happen again. And yet, one question remains unanswered. Why? The ocean still keeps its secrets, but technology and determination have not given up. After a brief trial in 2023, the company Ocean Infinity has completed preparations to launch a new, full-scale search by the end of 2025. AI-powered underwater drones will descend into the most unreachable parts of the ocean, scanning the seabed centimetre by centimetre. Maybe this time, the sea will give up its witness. All that radar. Did no one really see this aircraft? Or perhaps no one was truly looking. Sometimes, humanity fails to see what is right in front of it, or chooses not to. The MH370 disaster exposed just how fragile our faith in technological superiority really is. What vanished from the sky was not just an aircraft. 239 lives, the hopes of their families, and the modern world's belief that it controls everything. All of it disappeared. What remains is a silence echoing in the dark. And that silence is still challenging us today.